And we're live. How's it going, people? Fantastic Thursday. Sorry that I'm late and gay. That's how it goes, you know. All right, so today I got inspired. I got inspired from just different things I was doing throughout the week. And for my Star Wars game, some of you know that I run a Star Wars game. I was doing some work on a profession in it, or a sort of like a subclass called entertainer. And in Star Wars, the entertainer can do multiple things. The main thing that they typically do is dancing or music. That's what most people know entertainers do. Within the Star Wars mythos or lore, there is also, acting. Acting is under the umbrella of music and dance. It's the arts, just like in real life. So, as I was working on this stuff, another thing I added to my game was image designer. And it's very interesting trying to implement the image designer, as I know they are in Star Wars, to a Dungeons and Dragons platform or to a Dungeons and Dragons game type. Because not everyone knows what an image designer does, but also the system of Dungeons and Dragons isn't intended for you to be able to do what the image designer can do. So I'm going to go into a little bit of what the image designer does, just as some background to why I'm even talking about this. So we have image designers specialize in cosmetic changes to a character, granting them small or minor boosts to their stats. So what they can do effectively is they can do tattoos, markings, and they can do stat migrations. Those familiar with the MMO scene, effectively that is a respec. They can reset your skill points, reset your ability points, things like that. And then you can rearrange them and reorganize them in a way that makes you happy. So effectively, that is what the image designer does. Now, the image designer also can play a part in physically changing you. So say you want your hair to be blue, you can go to an image designer and they can change your hair to be completely blue. Say you want some plastic surgery, you want to change your face, your jaw, change your height. Image designers can do that. And because it's Star Wars, it's all fantasy, it's all fun, good stuff, that you can do these outlandish changes, and it's perfectly normal because cloning technology and regenerative properties and advanced healing. You know, there's Bacta, there's Trandoshans have a natural ability to heal, like regrow their limbs if they get cut off. And yeah, so that's effectively what the tools that the image designer has accessible. Now, what I added to my game was the ability for, in Star Wars, there is wound damage. And so what I do is I have it so that if you watch an entertainer dancing or music, you could do both, by the way. But if you watch them over time, you will get healed for your wound damage. This is very similar to how Star Wars Galaxies, the video game, had it, where you'd have something called battle fatigue. And it was basically like a corrupting debuff to your stats. And as you took damage, as you performed actions in combat, etc., you would incur a small penalty that would build up accumulatively into a huge penalty. So it would slowly decay your max health in your mind, action, or health. So as those points drained, you had to deal with battle fatigue. So you couldn't indefinitely sustain in combat. At some point, you would have to go to a medical facility to have your wounds treated. Which, if you went to a doctor to have your wounds treated, they would incur battle fatigue. And the only way to subside that is if you go to a doctor in a medical facility, because then when the doctor applies the wound treatment or the battle fatigue treatment, they themselves wouldn't incur that penalty because they're in a safe environment in the hospital. That's some video game logic and video game techniques, which I'm finding absolutely great ideas to have when you're designing your game. Absolutely great ideas. Don't be afraid to shy away from video game-like mechanics in this regard. I think I've said before how I'm opposed to video game logic for NPCs. There are some circumstances where I'm okay with it, but generally speaking, I try to shy away from video game logic with NPCs. So, one of the things I kept trying to tackle for several months now, and I've been doing it like little by little, working my way through it, is coming up with how to introduce dancers and musicians. Now, none of my players really have an interest in either of those things, but I like them to be available. I like them to be on the table in the event someone does have an interest in those things. So that's why I've been working at it and chopping away and trying to get some progress done on it. And I've done some pretty good stuff with it. I think, toot my own horn here. So what I got is some really good, let me see if can I find it? Where did I put it? I might be able to share some of it with you guys. Entertainer, here we are. And let me share my screen. Share screen. Tailoring, here we are. I'll give you a second to load. And then here are dancing abilities. So right here at the top, watch someone dance heals watching someone dance heals 1 wound point or ability point per minute. My party is learning this right now. Enemies can actually damage your ability points. And up until they got to Kashyyyk, they hadn't really encountered that. They hadn't encountered enemies that were looking to cripple or hinder them in this way. They would just be straight, hey, they're targeting your vitality. So it's like, oh, well, okay, they're just trying to straight up kill me. That's not a problem. Kill them first. So so that is the gist of that. Then I have a regulation here. Cannot exceed more than half your wound points from watching a dancer. So your wound points equal your constitution score, not your modifier. So if you have a 10, you can get up to 5 in this way. And it's per minute. So your character actually has to sit there and observe and watch. Again, it's a little bit more video game mechanic. In base rules, you recover 1 wound point per day or 1 ability point per day. And you can double that amount with surgery by a skilled physician or with a medical pack. Or I think it's like a metagel pack or something. So this is just a way of speeding the recovery so it doesn't hold up the entire party. That's basically all I'm after here. I don't want to give them some miracle, hey, instantly heal yourselves. I have something similar to that, actually. The player's ship has the ability, if the players spend 2 rounds in the medical center, on the ship, they will instantly recover all of their wound damage. They don't recover their vitality, though. Some players have misunderstood that, and I've had to tell them, no, it doesn't heal your vitality. It only heals your wound. So this is another way for them to heal their wounds. So now we go down to musician. It's the same thing. Listening to someone playing music heals one wound or ability point per minute. And again, cannot exceed. So if you're doing both of these things and say you have a constitution score of 10, you can heal for 10 wound points just by listening and watching someone dance and play music. Now, say if say you can't do them at the same time, say it's only one person and they're doing the music and then they're doing the dancing, it still works. You could do both. You know, in game time, it's like, okay, you're spending 10 minutes to do this, you know, to watch someone dance and play music and etc. At the same time, I also make it so that the musician can use these abilities. Here's Lap to Neck. A fast-paced song to captivate your audience. It improves their energy. Lasts 2 hours. Whenever you take damage, you roll 1d6 to reduce its impact. It costs 1 vitality to the entertainer, but it lasts 2 hours on the person watching or listening in this case. So, and you know, you can actually apply in this case with the music, you can apply that to multiple people. So for 1 vitality, you can buff the entire party effectively. That makes entertainers a buff bot. And it's the same thing with dancing. So here's a case of you get bonus vitality for watching someone do the footloose dance. And these are just tools that I give the players. I give them the option to figure out if they want to pursue them. I don't force them to do it. I just give them the tools to decide if they want to proceed. All right, over here is Image Designer. This section is marking/tattoos. I have Remove Tattoo. I specify each character has up to 6 tattoo slots. I put slots on the players so that they don't go ham crazy and have every single tattoo under the sun, because that would just be ridiculous. That would be encouraging players to just stack buffs that don't really fit their character. You know, it's like, oh, I don't want a tattoo, but I need the buff, so I'm going to get the buff. I don't want players having that mentality. I want the players to have the mentality of, this is what my character would have or do, and it's awesome that it provides some sort of buff or enhancement to my character. And so I came up with just different themes. You know, here's Twi'lek Dancer, Tree of Wisdom, Spiced Tea, Crate Dragon Skull, Stardust, Mythosaur. I came up with some of these to work with the players and their professions. So we have some players that are pilots, players that are miners, players that are racers, merchant, diplomats, armorsmiths, bartenders, bounty hunters, shipwright, weaponsmith. So I added all kinds of things that I think the players may be interested in, they may want to do. Give them the option. And they can actually have some sort of story as to why the character has a tattoo, why they want the tattoo. It's up to them. And then stat migration. Stat migrations cost 1 tattoo slot. So to make this change, you're eliminating your ability to have a tattoo, or 1 tattoo, or a mod upgrade for a tattoo. Stat migrations require 1 hour to take effect because you just had a physically altering procedure. You're not going to be up on your feet ready to go immediately. During this 1 hour period, affected stats suffer a -6 on all rolls. So for 1 hour, again, you're in recovery. You're not out here trying to go fighting people or having stat migrations in the middle of a battlefield. Okay, this is surgery. So you have to be careful when you start doing things like this. And so at any rate, this is to discourage players from just being like, oh, hey, we're in the middle of a boss fight, or we're about to go into a boss fight. Let's take the opportunity to change our stats around specifically for this incoming boss. It's like, no, you can't do that. Or you could do that, but you're going to have a -6 on whatever stats you're attempting to change. And then here are some of the things. You can swap stats. You can remove a stat migration. You can convert wisdom into another stat. That's what regress. These regress stats are basically you're converting, say, constitution into strength. You're like, I'm going to take away 1 constitution score and put it into my strength score. And you can do this up to 3 times. So you can take 3 constitution scores and put them in strength. That's up to you if you want to do that. And we have like boost vitality. You convert wound points into vitality. Boost wound points, you can convert your BAB into 3 wound points. You can do this 3 times. So you take away 3 BAB to gain 9 wound points. Regress skill, you convert 1 unused skill into 3 vitality points. And then there's different degrees of skill. So migrate skill, if you reallocate your points, it incurs 1d8 wound points after use. That is a hefty penalty to take on your wound points. It's a nasty one. That's for the novice tier. Expert tier, 1d6. That's still pretty nasty. And then master tier is 1d2. That is much, much better. Very efficient. Very good. But as you see, the DC here on the right-hand side, it gets higher with the difficulty and the benefit. So this is my method of encouraging players to, if you want to go down this road, go down it hard. Actually focus it, make it a part of your character. If you don't want to, you want to just dabble in it. You don't want to go full throttle. You don't have to go full throttle. There's still an option for you. All right. It's just like anything in real life, you're not proficient with it. Just because I know how to swing a hammer doesn't mean I know how to repair a roof. Okay. So I could probably figure out how to repair a roof with a hammer, but if I don't actually focus on learning how to do that, then I'm not going to gain the experience. I'm not going to be more proficient at it than someone who is focused on learning how to use a hammer and how to repair a roof. So these were some of the things that I was looking at. Some of the things I was like, hey, this looks pretty freaking cool. Let me see, I'm deciding now is the time I want to mess around with my StreamYard thing here. All right. So that's how I did music and dancing. Different types of music, as I think we all know. You want to have, depending on what type of background and story you're in, folk, jazz, opera, metal, rock. I think I've told the story before. I don't know. Maybe I haven't. One of the things I did in my Vertigo Cypher game was I had the band Sabaton in it as a finale to one quest. The quest started out where this small little district in town was being overrun by zombies. And the zombies were just everywhere. And they were popping out of the woodwork from sound. They were attracted to sound. So the party had managed to navigate through some broken down buildings, and they had to navigate through apartments. They tried saving people. They went into close quarter combat against these zombies, and they managed to fight their way to a concert venue where they had discovered that Sabaton was holed up in the bathroom because they were not sure what the hell was going on. They were just being attacked by zombies, and they had to hold themselves up and hopefully wait out the zombie apocalypse. Well, when the players came across them, they devised their plan. They needed to lure all of the zombies into one location so they could be exorcised. And so to do this, they needed some loud music. And Sabaton was the band up to bat. So the players were like, all right, we're all going to defend Sabaton as they're on stage playing a concert. And they cranked up the volume and they lured in the zombies, and they just kept getting flooded by zombies and more zombies and more zombies. And finally, when they completed the spell, they managed to wipe out all of the zombies. And it was fantastic. It was absolutely cool and great. So yeah, it was fantastic. It was great. And that's one of those moments with music. I actually had in Discord. Discord doesn't allow it anymore, but I had in Discord, I had a bot with a playlist of Sabaton songs that was playing in the background as the players were doing combat and they were fighting the different monsters and creatures. And yeah, that was a great opportunity to introduce some modern music. Prior to that, all I had really had for music was like medieval fantasy and, you know, like lutes and things like that. That to me, it's like there's a time and place for that. There's a mood for that. You know, I like Robin Hood as much as more than most people. So it's like I understand a lot of the lyrical notes and music notes that come with it, with that era of music. But I'm also I'm a big Sabaton fan. I love Sabaton. I've seen them live about 3 times now. So they're fantastic. They're very well done. If you've actually looked at my YouTube channel here, I do have some of my recordings from their live shows. I actually mean to upload more of them because I recorded almost every one of their songs live. And absolutely fantastic band. I love them. They're great. They just have like one song after another that's an absolute hit. So highly recommend them. Not to promote them too much, but yeah, I highly recommend them. And so I was given the opportunity from under that game, in that game's era, because it's the modern age, I was given the opportunity to throw them into the music. And it was great. It was great. Now, next thing is art. Art. Different ideas I have for art. I think you guys have seen before on my previous streams, I showed some of the magical items I had in the shop, which included theft of art. So if someone wanted to steal art in one of my games, they could actually sell it and there was like a different price if it were loud or if it were a silent steal, and then it would have a different value based on either of those. So if it were stolen and it were quiet, there'd be a higher payout for it. Whereas if it were stolen and detected, it would obviously not be worth as much because everyone knows it was stolen. So with that in mind, what I go with for art is I think of things like sculptures, scrolls, pottery, tablets, relics. These are just different things that we as dungeon masters, storytellers, and players think about as like tools and vehicles to do our elaborate ideas and do some of the more crazy things we like to do. In my Star Wars game, I am entertaining or exploring the idea of relics. Relics are intended to either serve as like a trinket or a device that the players can activate to give them some kind of buff, or they could opt to not have it do that. They could actually opt to have a relic that just simply gives them a stat stick. That is a stat stick, I should say. It's like, hey, give yourself +1 wisdom. And it's like, awesome, cool, 1 wisdom. So that's some of the ideas that I have for relics and art. In some cases, I've come up with, scrolls are a great one that everyone uses, I think. Tablets are another one that a lot of people use. In both cases, I've used them as MacGuffins or quest objects. So in my Vertigo game, I had the Necronomicon as an item that the players could go for. I would consider that not quite a scroll, more like a tome, which could fall under the category of art. At least in my opinion, it could. So, that to me is grimoires are another one. It's like these books of spell casting and magic. I would put them under the umbrella of artifact or art. And when you have them under that category and you have them accessible or obtainable by the players, you can do all kinds of good things with them. And you can also encourage the players to use them by having them in like a, shall we say, you have them in a way they can use them, but as like a bonus action. Or, I mean, typically in 5e, it's a use item action, which doesn't stack with any of your other actions. It's considered a full action. So you can't you can't make an attack if you're using an item. Unless the item says it's a bonus action to use. So I would personally entertain that idea for relics or trinkets in your games. Is like, hey, I want the players to use this tablet. This tablet has the ability to cleanse the area of undead corruption, of undead blight. So if I make it a use item action, that player won't be able to do something else that could be detrimental to the party. So he's going to look at it as, okay, I can use my action to heal, or I could use my action to cleanse the area. If I don't heal my ally, he's going to die. If I don't cleanse the area, everyone's going to die. So which option do I take? And if there's charges on the object, like say there's only 3 charges on the cleanse, then that makes it even more pressing for the player to decide, when do I want to deploy this? Do I want to deploy it on the boss? Maybe if I use it on the boss, it'll have a greater impact. These are things that the players are going to debate in their head and contemplate when they should or shouldn't. And typically, players will err in the side of safety. Typically. you can't anticipate when a player is going to do something stupid and decide, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try it out over the water to see what happens. And then nothing happens. And so, okay, now instead of 3 charges, you now have 2 charges. You just made this way more difficult than you needed to, just because you wanted to, quote unquote, see what happens. Now, so those are some of the ideas that I had with relics, things like that. And the roleplay mechanic, the roleplay aspect, one of the things I like to do with roleplay, and I've talked about this before, which is I like to find ways for mundane activities to be rolled into the roleplay, to be rolled into the story. Now, I don't like doing too much mundane stuff, but it also depends on what story narrative I'm trying to build, what circumstances. So, for example, in my Star Wars game just the other day, when they had arrived at an inn, the innkeeper had offered the party sanctuary. She's like, hey, you guys can stay here. It's fine. You know, my whole mission here is to create some level of sanctuary for travelers, some level of safety and comfort. So as the players' NPCs, the party's NPCs settled in, I began having them do mundane tasks. So they walked into the inn. Well, after returning from a mission, they found that the healer was sweeping the floor. You know, it's like, okay, these guys are acknowledging that this is safe, or this is kindness extended to them. They could do mundane things. I'll have an NPC start cooking food for the party. Okay, so it's like, all right, you guys aren't getting any benefits from eating food or from eating this food, but you are benefiting, or you're role playing that your characters aren't just these weird golems that walk around and don't eat at all. It makes it a point to be a part of the character and a part of the story. So it just casually reminds the players, hey, you do need to eat and drink. At some point, that has to happen. And I've talked about before how some of the players in my previous games, some of the players thought the other party members never ate anything. Like, they just didn't eat. I'm like, oh, yeah, we don't eat. It's fine. Because they never expressed interest in food. They never expressed interest in hunting, in gathering, in drinking, consuming water, or consuming a beverage. Nothing. They had just continued for days at a time, perfectly fine, not consuming anything. And so the one player thought that was really odd and really weird. And so he felt it was so weird that he would comment on it in character and not out of character, which I thought was comical. I thought that was funny. That's some pence for your thoughts. You want to be mindful of that. And that's why, as I said before, that's why I like to include mundane things with the players and their activity, give them a reason to do them. Actually, I think I have it right here. I do. I'm not sure if I've shared this before, but I will share it today. And general crafting. There we go. Make sure. Yes. Okay, good. So here is general crafting for food. This is what I used for the players to consume food. Oh, there it is. So I have things like little buffs. Proto soup restores vitality. Veg hash salad restores wound. Blood chowder restores vitality or wound. Got some Wan, gives you some just gather information bonus. You got Scrimpy, gives you an attack bonus. Synth Stake, diplomacy. Cho Nor Hula gives you some fortitude. After, you're strong enough not to puke from it. And these are little food buffs. And then we have some water. So water gives you a fire buff. Lock salt water cures poison debuffs. Got some Corellian fresh water, removes an attribute debuff from your sheet. Like that's some good stuff right there. And you can see that these just different things, these different drinks, they can overlap with what a player wants. They can overlap with what a player's character type is. They could also give a player a boost where they don't see an option or an opportunity to have a boost otherwise. And you try to add I try to add a price value, a monetary value to some of these things to indicate to the players like, hey, these things aren't exactly easy to acquire. And throughout the galaxy, there's different values for things. The Corellian brandy here, drawing my attention. It's an alcoholic beverage, and it has a nice little removes an attribute debuff. Well, also eerily similar to the Corellian fresh water, which does the same thing. What's his name? Now I'm thinking about it. Niraj's character in my game, he's currently suffering a Constitution debuff. You may want to consider getting some Corellian fresh water, or what is that, Corellian brandy? Yeah, Corellian brandy. Cure himself of those debuffs. I'm gonna change this flame out though real quick. Bonus vitality. Now you also have Tatooine Sunburn here. That's the thing. I create multiple avenues here so that the players have not just one way to do something. I want the players to have the ability to multiple ways to skin a cat, supposedly. And I think I have shared I shared tailoring, I think, before. Let me see. Do I have tailoring available? If I have tailoring up, I'll show you guys some tailoring. Because tailoring, I do. Tailoring is right there. So let's share this tab. So this is tailoring. That's just the outfits. Let's hop over here. So here I have some inventory reduction stats. So we got like a traveler backpack, reduces inventory weight by 10, reduces inventory weight by 15. Here's a spacer pack, provides 12 hours of oxygen, reduces weight by 10. Got traveler backpack. Has an armor check penalty on it because now it's reducing a significant amount of weight. Here's another one. Significant amount of weight. I might want to nerf that, actually, now I'm looking at it. Or buff it. I'm not quite sure which. So, and I have some utility belts. Reduces inventory weight by 25. Armor check penalty -1. Got a medical fanny pack. Removes the weight from 3 item types on the following list. So it removes the weight of 6 stim packs, 1 back to pack, 2 back to injectors, 10 rations, 1 water canteen. You can choose the same type of item twice. Item type twice. So I can choose, say, I got 3 items I can do. So I could choose to do 3 stim packs. Or I'm sorry, it'd be 2 stim packs, not 3. So I could choose to hold up to 12 stim packs. I could choose to hold up to 2 back to packs and for 1 back to pack and 4 back to injectors, up to 20 rations, 2 water canteens. So this is just a way of having your character or your players carry multiple objects and actually have it feasible instead of them carrying like this giant rucksack full of stuff. It's like, well, no, you have equipment that you can use and attach and put all over yourself. In fact, maybe I should elaborate a little bit on that, because we had just had, in my last session of Star Wars, we had just had an issue come up where one of my players, his words, not mine, was salty over a ruling I had made. And what had effectively happened is he had a mod on his heavy weapon that allowed him to draw and stow it as a free action. All right. But the rules state in the book, when you're using a heavy weapon, you have to have 2 hands to use it. All right. So he wanted to he got this heavy weapon mount that allows him to draw and stow it as a free action. He put it on his heavy weapon, a 2-handed weapon, and he had wanted to take an attack of opportunity and use his fist to punch at someone who was walking out of his danger zone. And I told him he couldn't do that because he had previously attacked with the rifle or with his heavy weapon. And he was articulating to me, well, no, it's a shoulder mounted weapon. So his hands are free. That's the whole point of him even getting the mod. And I understand where he's coming from. It's like, okay, aesthetically, you don't want your character holding the weapon. That's fine. But mechanically, he has to hold the weapon because that's the criteria for using the weapon. And so we had this back and forth discussion, me and all the players, over how should we handle this. And I basically said, well, no, I'm going to rule with the rules on this. Okay. You have to use that, because it's not like with the attack of opportunity, it's a moment of vulnerability. Okay. It's you see a window and you can capitalize on it because you're fast enough. Well, if your hands are on a heavy weapon, you aren't fast enough to switch to your fists unless you drop the heavy weapon. Okay? But I would argue even then, you have to have the rational thinking and the reflexes to say, okay, drop the heavy weapon, fists now, attack. Okay? And actually probably be, instead of fist now, it would just be attack. So drop heavy weapon, attack. And I was telling them that the rules state that if you're using a heavy weapon, you have to have 2 hands on it. You have to, you can't make an attack of opportunity with a ranged weapon. That's another factor. So you have to use melee for an attack of opportunity. And that was another crux that he took issue with. But I think the players swallowed that pill a lot easier than they swallowed you're using a 2-handed weapon. Now, to make things more complicated, there was another player who was wielding a heavy 2-handed ranged weapon, and he was allowed to make the attack of opportunity against the same target. The reason being, his heavy weapon had a bayonet attached to it. So it was a melee weapon as well as a ranged weapon that was a 2-handed heavy weapon. So he was allowed to make the attack of opportunity. And the player didn't like that. He was very salty because in his headcanon, in his mind, his character has his shoulder mount. He's not using his hands at all. And he's firing it, freelance. He doesn't care. And I had to tell him, like, okay, in your mind, that's fine. But mechanically, from the rules, that's not how it operates. So you're not going to get the attack of opportunity. So that is something that I'm going to warn future DMs. Don't be afraid to distinguish and draw the line on things like that. It's like, I don't care aesthetically what your character looks like. You could say your character has no nose. You're a human with no nose. That doesn't matter to me. Okay? If you roll a nat 20 on a smell check, you might not have a nose, but you know something about this scent or thing. Okay? Because mechanically, you can. You have that as an ability. Now, if you have, say, you're blinded, okay, because that's another crippling effect. If you're blinded, there are rules to state what happens if you're blinded. By the way, just to clarify, not having a nose doesn't mean you can't smell. It would mean that your smelling is crippled or hindered, but it doesn't mean you can't smell at all, period. So, like I said, that's one of the things that I was talking to several DMs over the past week or so, and some players about this, and it's like, yeah, this player had it in his mind that the whole perk of having this thing is that he can use his weapon with no hands, and it's like, well, no, the only thing that item gives you is the draw and stow as a free action. On a heavy weapon, which he thought was useless. And I had to disagree with him adamantly. I was like, no, that's not useless. That's a heavy weapon. You're able to draw and stow free action. You don't have to use an action to pull it out. You don't have to drop your current weapon to pull it out. You just, boom, it's out, ready to go, or boom, it's hidden and concealed. He didn't like that, though. So, all right. Sorry, bud. Let's see. I got, you got some bandoliers here. Here's some cool things I added. A dual pistol belt. Drawing 2 pistols can be done in a single action. Again, this is a handy thing. This right here. Draw 2 weapons in one action. Removes the weight of 2 blaster pistols. So if these were, say, heavy blaster pistols, which I think are like 4 pounds, if these are heavy blaster pistols, immediately removes the weight of both of them. So you just saved 8 pounds. Now, if they're like 1 pound or 2 pound, then okay, basically they weigh 0, which can be freaking good, be crazy good. We got dual-bladed sheath, drawing 2 swords or daggers can be done in a single action. So you can pull some blade or Leonardo the Ninja Turtle action here. You could also do some Roni Kenshin here with a single blade. Sorry about that. I was talking on Discord. I really should learn to mute, but I'm such an old man and I don't know how to do these things. And okay, check my notes here. So I went over the aesthetics, went over music, and different ways you could deploy music. Went over art, tablet scrolls. Trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to cover. I covered some of the role play aspect, where be aware of the aesthetics. You want to be aware of the aesthetics. Players get in their mind what they can and can't do. I had I forget which game it was. The players had in their mind that they had like a xenomorph's tongue. They thought like, hey, my character's animal transformation has like a xenomorph tongue. To me, those are aesthetic things. It's like, okay, you can have those things. But once you start asking for the game mechanics and the gameplay to change, if I didn't expressly or directly give you something to that effect, it's not a thing. And that's something that players should bear in mind. They should keep that in mind, in my games at least. And I would say as dungeon masters, keep that in mind in your game. There are some instances, and I probably have flip-flopped back and forth on this personally, where it's like there are some circumstances where, yeah, it's fine to give players their different ideas or their different options and whatever it is that they wanted to do. Let them have fun, But I also look at it, it's like, okay, well, now you're trying to use this fun mechanic to get an edge in a boss fight that, like, even in this circumstance, okay, in this boss fight scenario, it's like the players were just completely owning the boss fight. Like, it was a really one-sided boss fight. And it's like, okay, you want to take an attack of opportunity with something that this item doesn't give you in a boss fight that you guys are just completely slamming. Like, I don't get it. Personally, I don't get it. So, that's where I'm coming from with this. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm all for individual creativity and customization. I like the idea of characters being able to have uniqueness. I try to encourage that. But like when I give you uniqueness, when I give the players their unique flavor, their unique style, the goal, or what I'm aiming for, is for their play style to be fostered and unique. And it's like, this is a guy, I take into account how the player is playing their character. I take into account that. One of the things the same player wanted to do was remove his character's ability to have fear. The purpose being so that he couldn't get stunned by fear because he's a droid. He's a robot. And robots can't know fear. Well, in Star Wars, that's just simply not true. As we see in both C-3PO and in R2-D2, both of them are very conscious of the dangers that droids are at risk of having or at being. And so this player, when he wanted to come up with a way of removing fear from his character so he wouldn't have to make any will saving throws, because he's looking at his will save and saying, that is really low, and I'm very vulnerable to willpower attacks. He was like, well, I know a solution. I'll just say my character can't feel fear. And I was like, okay. Well, if you're going to go down that road, you're effectively making your character stupid. And so the module I came up with, like, reduced his will or his wisdom by like 6. It was some insane amount of a drop. And the player was like, what? Why? And it's like, well, because your character is too stupid to be aware of his surroundings. Because that's the purpose of fear, is to make sure you have some level of consciousness of the danger of your surroundings. If you have no awareness of your surroundings, you don't care. You're an inanimate object. You're just doing a thing from one process to another process. By having fear, you're aware that your actions have consequences. You're aware that if you do something wrong or you're off by a calculation, you can be destroyed. You can be terminated. And it's like that's a critical function to all droids. And some droids are defective. Some droids have no awareness at all that they can be destroyed. They're just they're perfect drones that just do their job, and they die, And that was another thing that this player was grumbling to me about. It was like, well, that doesn't make sense to him. He's a droid. He's a soldier. He shouldn't be afraid of dying. And it's like, well, he's not entirely afraid of dying, but also the fear of death is what makes you make calculated decisions. A droid in an army of droids is probably going to be very singular in mind and like, okay, keep going until either I die or victory, right? But if the droid is in an army and that army is getting exterminated, like they're just getting completely annihilated, the droid's protocol should tell it to recalibrate and adjust strategy. Should tell it to, hey, back away, try a new strategy because this current one isn't working. And if you have a dynamic where it's like, oh no, he's just going to keep going until he dies, well, now you're just throwing your soldiers out there and wasting them. Like there's nothing to gain. You're just wasting resources. Which, I get not everyone is a military tactician or a military war expert or anything like that. But, that's information to relay to your players when they come up with some of these ideas that they have. Some of these justifications where it's like, oh, this would be cool if my character could do this, or if this could happen. And it's like, well, sure, it would be cool, but it's also not practical. It doesn't make any sense for the character to operate that way or be that way. It just doesn't make any sense. which maybe I'll talk about that. What happened this past session? That's a good thing that I think I should bring up. So in this past session, we didn't play this past Sunday. So when I'm saying past session, it's actually 2 weeks ago. The players had opted to do a boss fight, and not opted. They knew the boss fight was coming. I told them the boss fight was coming, and when they got to the boss fight, they had 2 achievements they could have done. Could have being the operative word here. There's a bit of a past tense there. And because of this whole thing with the mounted weapon happened, the droid player had, as he put, he was salty. He had decided he would just kill the boss and to hell with the achievements. And the achievements in my game, if you don't know, they range in what award or rewards they give you. They could be XP rewards, they could be item rewards, they could be skill points, they could be hit points, they could be all sorts of things. And so, because this guy was salty, he opted to just go ahead and kill the boss. Just I'm not going to wait, I'm just going to execute the guy. And this had caused some concern for the other 2 party members who were in the boss fight, because the other 2 party members wanted the achievements. At least one of them. Maybe if not both, at least one of them. But this player decided, no. I don't care about that. I'm going to just kill the boss. And it's like, okay. It was an interesting circumstance. Interesting to read the players and hear their feedback and their thoughts on things. And there is now very much the real potential of some PvP going to happen, because the players are not satisfied or happy with this other player's behavior and performance. It's like, okay, now your behavior is putting the rest of the party in danger. Your behavior is putting everyone else at risk. So I'm not so sure we want to keep working with you on this. So the players as a whole are really considering how do they want to proceed forward, because they haven't been very content with this player and his character. This is some DM advice on this, because while I understand all the players and their side and their perspective, the players are also aware, like, hey, I don't want to kill someone else's player or someone else's character. I'm sorry, someone else's character if they like their character. You know, it's like I don't want to kill someone's character that they're very fond of and attached to. At the same time, these guys are looking at it like, with the way things are going, this player is going to kill my character, which I'm very fond and attached to. So it's going to come down to a me or us or them, or a me or them scenario. And as a dungeon master, my job is to basically be neutral. My job is to say, I don't know. That's for you guys to decide. And when the conflict happens, it's my job to maintain neutrality. You know, it's my job to say, okay, yes, that's what their ability does. That's how it works. Or no, that's not how that ability works. That's not what it does. So I have to be ready, and I might in the coming weeks actually make some sort of video about that, about PvPing, because that's a very real thing that could happen in the coming games that I'm seeing here. I don't know if we're going to be playing this Sunday. I'm currently looking for players. Looking for one more player to join my campaign. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if I get anyone. It'd be awesome if I did. I just need one more player. But I think with that, I have nothing more to say, nothing more to elaborate on or go on about. So I think for now, I'm going to hold my thoughts, and I will catch you guys next week. Hopefully. I don't know if I'll even stream next week. There's some things going on in my real life that I might need to deal with. So I might not stream next week. I'll see about it. I'll see what I can do. But either next week or the week after that, I probably won't be able to stream because of real life obligations. But we'll see how that goes. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this video, if you would like to engage with me, I read the comments, and I look forward to hearing from anyone who listens to these for feedback and criticism and exchanging of ideas. That's the main thing I like. I like exchanging information and knowledge. If you have any of that you want to share, feel free and please say something in the comments. I would love to answer some questions and actually talk to people. So thank you for listening, and I appreciate this to those of you in the future that are giving this a listen. You guys have a good one, and take care of yourselves. Peace.